There are some things you just don't expect your son to say. Hey, Dad, can I wash your car? Dad, you want to borrow my Hannah Montana CD? Dad, would you chaperone my date on Saturday night? Dad, I've got cancer.
No.
Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. 55 days ago, my 23-year-old son Russell said that to me. Dad, I've got cancer. You know, somehow I thought I was better prepared for this, because almost every day we hear stories of people getting all different types of cancer. Olivia Newton-John with breast cancer, my friend Tony with leukemia, my customer's little daughter Emma with a strange tumor. But this time it was my son! The little guy who at 8 months old on his very first Christmas morning while opening his My Buddy doll, fearfully flinched because he thought his new friend was injured as it spilled out of the box. The little guy who would shriek as he ran around the backyard, naked on a hot summer afternoon, trying to wet his older brother with the garden hose. The young man who brought tears to my eyes as he strolled across the stage in his cap and gown at his high school graduation. Dad, the doctor said I must go immediately to emergency. He packed his little toiletry bag and I picked him up. We drove to the hospital. I could feel his fear. I could see it on his face. My cell phone rang. Mr. Bowler, this is Dr. Jetta. Her voice was quiet and low. This is serious. The cancer is aggressive and I want him in the hospital right away. They're going to want to operate, so make sure he doesn't have anything to eat or drink. I stayed by his bedside that night until midnight. He was hungry and thirsty, but he couldn't have anything to eat or drink because of the impending operation. I drove home at 1 in the morning, not remembering how I got there. Early the following morning, I was awakened by my cell phone buzzing on my bedside table. There was a text message from Russell. It said, "Hey, Dad, they gave me something to help me sleep at 1 o'clock, but then woke me at 2:30 to tell me that the cancer spread into my stomach." I fell out of bed. I couldn't think. I couldn't focus. I couldn't get to my son fast enough. I was like that toy in that Christmas song that spins and flies across the room and bangs into the wall, only to stop, change directions, and fly back the other way. I flew back to the hospital. The next 5 days were like the first. Fasting all day, waiting for the operation. In the course of those 5 days, Russell lost 20 pounds. I remembered back to when he was 1 day old, when we adopted him. I said to his birth mother, "Don't ever worry. I will always take care of him for you." Russell was never the type to tell me that he loved me, but I knew he did. Over the course of these 55 days, I've been fortunate to learn 3 life experiences that I would like to share with you. One of faith, one of thanksgiving, and one of attitude. I've always believed myself to be a man of faith. Faith can be defined as belief, trust, and loyalty in God. But it takes a real life and death experience to challenge whatever faith you have. It will either augment it or cause it to diminish altogether. For me, I was even closer to God. Somehow, all those things that were once so important in my life completely lost their value. I realized my son was a gift to me, but there was never any promise or guarantee of how long I would have him. I thought back to all those wonderful Christmas mornings, those exciting birthday parties, those fishing trips he loved so much. Thanksgiving. The effects of the chemo treatment were horrible. He had open mouth sores, he had bleeding, and the vomiting. The anti-nausea prescription that Russell needed so desperately cost $3,500 a week. While he was in the hospital, the medicine would be paid for by our system. I was thankful for that. And lastly, attitude. Ironically, about a year before this, I was in the same hospital visiting my friend Tony, who was bravely battling leukemia. I dressed up as a doctor. I put on a white lab coat, wore disposable rubber gloves, and carried a clipboard. I walked into Tony's hospital room and announced it was time for his prostate examination. After the laughing had subsided, I sat in the chair right in front of Tony's bed, looked him square in the eye and said, "I'm proud to know someone who's successfully beating leukemia." Tony broke down and cried. Tony is the quintessential poster boy for beating cancer. On the day that Russell was admitted to the hospital, Tony came to visit him. He showed Russell pictures of himself in the hospital on the iPhone, told him of his chemo treatments, and said that beating cancer was 95% positive mental attitude. He had us all laughing when he told us the story of the day all his hair simultaneously fell out in front of his mom. He was a godsend. He relieved the pressure in that little hospital room. In conclusion, isn't a positive attitude what really makes a difference in life? A positive attitude is like lighting a candle. And it's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. We still have a long way to go. More chemo treatments, maybe radiation, maybe even another operation. He told me he wanted to lose weight, but I said, there's better ways to do that. Although on the other hand, we're closer now than we've ever been. There are some things that you'd never expect your son to say. And just last week, it was, "Dad, I love you." Mr. Sister.